Welcome to the Deer Society Podcast. Here's your host, Brian Lemke.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the very first episode of the brand new Deer Society Podcast. We're going to be talking lots about everything deer hunting, the industry, and hopefully bringing you tons of education and tips and tactics that you can put in your arsenal and go out and use in the whitetail woods and hopefully put the odds in your favor this fall. Got some pretty exciting stuff lined up, some really cool guests, some of the best whitetail hunters out there, and going to be doing some cool things here in the studio too. Some live hunt breakdowns, different things, and hoping to keep you entertained and bring you as much education as possible. Kicking things off, first episode, we have the one and only Mike Dukart, founder of Illusion Hunting Systems and the Deer Society, and his two sons, JJ and Chris. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Doing absolutely wonderful.
Doing good, Brian.
I think it would only be natural. Those of you who are familiar with the Deer Society are familiar with the Mike Dukart. Welcome to the Deer Society. So, Mike, can you kick us off with a welcome to the Deer Society podcast?
Absolutely. Welcome to the Deer Society.
Just gives you chills. You know, I was just reading Bradley Cooper in that new movie, A Star is Born. He worked with a voice coach for over a year to get his voice the right way for that movie. I think, I don't know how long you worked on that voice, but it's pretty darn good. So, well, hey, let's kick things off. I want to know a little bit about how this whole thing started for you guys. How did you start Illusion, and how did this business grow to where it is now?
You know, it's a great question, but it's also a long answer, but I'll try and keep it as short as I can. Illusion actually started as, just an idea, a concept, way back in the day before Chris and JJ were born. And, me, like everyone else, I just worked a regular job at the Mayo Clinic and had been there for like 17 years. And I just love the outdoors. And I came up with the idea and concept about, it started out with goose hunting, actually. And I'm trying to call the geese in. Back in the day, and I'm kind of dating myself, they just had these basic kind of little instruments, musical instruments that you could buy in the store that sounded like geese, and that's really all it was. It just sounded like a goose. And so you'd go in and you'd pick out the one that you thought sounded like the goose the most. And it was just a simple, something goofy looking sounds or goofy sounding tones and different things. And what I realized by using those tools was that they really weren't effective in manipulating the animal. And fast forward, years go on, I end up becoming a waterfowl outfitter. And my quest was to get the geese as close as I could to the clients, because then they'd have a better chance of shooting. And to be honest with you, they fill out, I get to go home. So I would study the geese. I studied their behavior. I studied their sounds and their tones. And I literally took one of these more advanced calls that were in the store and manipulated every single piece of that. So I got the exact tones from the geese, the live geese, so that I got the exact volumes of the live geese. And then I shared what I learned over the years of the information on how they communicate and the different things that they'll do, from verbal, nonverbal to, basically a boisterous thing. And it got to a point where, learning from other people and learning from the geese themselves, that I created my very first communication system. And so that was my thing. There was nothing in the stores that, would teach people something like that. Nothing in the stores that were effective. And really that's how Illusion was born.
And what year was that? Like early 90s?
Yeah, that was in the early 90s. And, our first thought was, calling competitions were, pretty popular back in the day. Oh, we should, get into calling contests and get notoriety and whatnot. And quickly realized that, that's not the answer, what people are looking for. They're not looking for notoriety so much. I mean, it's cool to be cool. It's cool to have the cool stuff. There's definitely a demand for that. But what people really want they wanted information, and that's what it, the essence of what we created there.
Awesome. So tell me about that process a little bit. I mean, how long did it take you to really perfect those sounds? Once you heard them, how long did it take you to replicate something that actually sounded like a goose?
Well, it's a little more complicated than just that. It really didn't take that long to replicate the sound. The hard part was to create the instrument that would make the sound. And so as you go through the process of creating a call, we're talking about, 3 and 4 thousandths of thickness in certain situations, whether it's a tone board or a reed or whatever it is. Now, by the way, 3 thousandths is about the thickness of a human hair. Would make all the difference in the world whether you could get a specific sound or not. And so once you learn how to manipulate the instrument and then you played around with the sound, the sound was the easy part because you already kind of knew how to make the, call work. So you could just, oh yeah, I'll do this. Oh, hey, I got the sound, and then you would turn that into an actual piece of the language.
Interesting. So transitioning from goose calling into whitetails, what made you make the switch and decide that you wanted to get into whitetails versus waterfowl?
It was business decision. It really was. I mean, I was extremely passionate about waterfowl, very passionate about Canada geese, obviously, because, that was my first product. But I realized that if I wanted to take this dream, if you will, of becoming an actual company, I needed to be more diverse and I needed to get into more pieces of the market. So now I'm kind of transitioning from creating these different waterfowl systems, and I had like 5 or 6 of them, and getting into other species of animal that would increase my exposure to the market, to the hunting market. And so it really totally was a business decision. Now, I love deer hunting, don't get me wrong, but waterfowl just, consumes you. So I didn't get to deer hunt much. It didn't have any impact on turkey. So I put a lot of, time and effort into creating turkey systems as well. And basically, getting into the deer thing, it's the biggest market. And that was really the reason that I did it.
And in designing deer calls now, did you use the same method, when inventing the extinguisher and the black rack, really going out and learning? How did those develop and starting to develop those sounds for those? Was it like the waterfowl where you went out and studied the animal, or how did those kind of to start to be invented?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Every single communication system was based off of the same. I mean, why fix something that's not broke, right? So I did the exact same process. And the thing about a deer call, this is actually about the time that I got this. I'm going to kind of switch gears here a little bit. I had to have a reason to create something that was better than what was out there. And how that happened was, it was about the time now the boys are born, right? They're getting a little bit older. I'm trying to teach them how to hunt. And we went out and we hunted because waterfowl season got over, and now we would go do a little deer hunting. So we were hunting post-rut. Well, I'm like, okay, let's get these calls, right? We'll figure out how to call in deer. So we'd go out there and, as soon as you get out, you see that the moisture's coming out of your breath. That's that condensation. And you're just loading up this big, long, floppy reed with moisture. And if it's below 32 degrees, it just locks right up on you. And so I'm hunting with the boys, and we're running into issues where our calls are freezing up. I think JJ may have had a experience that he told me about. Maybe him and a friend went hunting. I'm trying to recall it, but I also had experiences where I saw a deer and I'm like, okay, I want to call it in like a goose, and the call was locked up. So that's really what initiated, the idea behind the deer call. In fact, I was sleeping and dreamt about how I could cure that problem. Because I mean, I knew so much about, the mechanics of a call. I woke up from my dream. I'm like, I got to wake up. And I woke up and I wrote it down, and then I went back to bed. And it was all about getting that reed to not freeze up on you. That was the concept. So that's where the mechanical engineering started, was in a dream. And then I just started working from there, and then I realized, oh my goodness, I can manipulate sound. And then it was game on. So
awesome. So at what point did JJ and Chris start getting involved in the business aspect of it? One of the coolest things that I see about Illusion and the Deer Society now is that you guys really have a family-run operation. I mean, you guys are here behind the scenes day in and day out, and you do it as a family, which is pretty awesome. So tell me a little bit, and maybe JJ or Chris, one of you guys can start, and tell me how you got involved in this in the first place.
Well, I can start pretty much all the way back to the waterfowl days. I mean, summertime would come around, and we want to be out riding our bikes with our friends, and our dad's dragging us into the garage at our old house, and we're putting little copper sleeves in wooden goose calls, and we got little plumber's tools, and we're reaming sharp edges off the little copper sleeves, and sore thumbs after, a day's worth of work, because, there was a lot more manual labor and a lot more going into like a goose call than there is to a deer call. So that's really how it kind of began. But then we were growing up. We went through school. I did a little bit of college. JJ did college. As JJ was finishing up college, I actually transitioned my life over into the Marines for a bit. And JJ and my dad had something going on when I got back out. They kind of had the very beginnings of kind of the Deer Society, I would say. The very beginnings of that kind of established when I came back into things. And then I just was able to plug in right away into more of the operations and manufacturing side of things. So I kind of plugged into that piece, and I just kept everything they got going and created. I just kept it flowing and moving and kept it expanding from there. So I'm kind of more the back end guy.
Good deal.
Yeah, and as far as like the deer hunting side of things goes, we've always been involved with the waterfowl, with the guide services, the calls, things like that. And then we got into turkey, and my passion's always deer. So when I got out of college, I went to school for business management, and then marketing. And I really just took to all the video production side of things and the graphics and design. And that's kind of when, the deer hunting, the products, and the marketing kind of took off from there. Instructional videos, we really went after that. Just more education on calling deer, communication, vocalizations, just tried to expand that side of things. Got into the rattling side. And just the more education we could put out there for deer is kind of what we tried to do. And that's kind of where Deer Society took off and started too. So,
yeah, that's something, it's interesting to see how the industry is now and how it's changed and how people get into the industry. And that's something that I want to talk about here in a minute. But going back to how the Deer Society was born, you mentioned starting to create videos and using the things that you kind of learned in school to apply marketing techniques to the Illusion system. So, Mike, is that kind of how the Deer Society was born? Is really a platform for Illusion?
That's exactly what happened, and I'm going to go back to the infancy of it. Like Chris said, he was over, Chris, by the way, was a Marine. I was a Marine as well. But Chris is over serving in Iraq about the same time that JJ is graduating from college. Now, during this time, I'm trying to grow a business. And we've gone all in. We've developed all these products, bought all this tooling. And if you don't understand what it's like to do a startup business, you put everything on the line, all your personal assets, everything. And so we're starting to get some traction, and then boom, the economy hits. And it was the biggest recession in modern history, and really we're left for dead. I mean, we're going to lose it all. We're going to lose it all. I got my son over in Iraq. I got JJ just out of college. There's no jobs. where, there's no economy. All the stores are cutting back. I mean, we were a fringe product. We were left for dead. And so, like a typical Marine, you're just going to, it inspires you. And all you think about is how to solve the problem. Now, don't get me wrong, I pouted for about a week or so, feeling sorry for myself because I thought we were going to lose everything, literally, the home, the whole works. And then my son gets out of college and we started talking. I'm like, well, JJ, I knew he loved the hunting piece of it. And there's really nothing I could do for him because of the situation of the business. And by the way, I'm working full time at this time at a different job. And we're doing this stuff out of our basement, okay? And as we build this up, JJ gets out of college. Chris is over in Iraq. And I go, JJ, there's nothing I can do. I know you love this, business. Said the only thing I could do is give you product. And you get on that internet thing you kids do. And I laugh about that a little bit because it was pretty much in its infancy. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to pay you with product. You go sell it. And whatever you sell online, that's how you're going to make your salary. So, it's basically a performance-based deal between us. So I didn't really know exactly what he wanted to do. I've never pushed these guys into anything. Even when we were doing waterfall and I was competing in the different competitions and everything, everybody was like, oh, get your kids in. And I never pushed them, never. If they wanted to get into a contest, I'd let them do it. If they wanted to go hunting, I'd let them do it. But I never pushed them because I saw how the sport is supposed to be fun. It's not a competition sport. So if you embrace it and if you love it, that's what it's really about. And as soon as you create a business and you add the stress and the economics and all the different things to it, it completely changes, how you perceive the sport itself. So I kind of let JJ find his way, and right away I figured out, he loves editing video, right? So JJ now became the video guy. And anyway, I'll kind of go a little off topic here. The way we solved that problem is we sat there and we're like, we know we got the best product out there. We know it. We know it works. We know this is the thing. You know what? Let's go right to the consumer and let's let them know about it because nobody knew about us. And that's where the video comes in. We sat down and did an infomercial off a laptop watching TV in the basement. And we put it on a regional network. And all of a sudden, everybody knew about this new deer calling system. And boom, before you knew it, we couldn't even keep up with the orders. So that's kind of where JJ started kicking in and having a huge impact in the business. And then we realized once we created this product that people wanted more and more and more information once they got the product. So as we were out there filming together and doing this while Chris is gone, we just keep building this content. And like, oh, did you see what that deer did and all that? I mean, one time we recorded a deer spitting 4 feet.
Really? 4 feet?
4 feet, yeah. What happens is, and we could break that story down someday, but what they do is they have like the saliva builds up and they'll start dripping when they get all upset and angry. And you got to be up close to deer, to see this kind of behavior. Right. And you got to make sure that they have no idea you're there. But anyway, this deer was just worked up. And we had called in a bunch of deer and they were all getting all revved up. And this guy was the new king of the castle, if you will. And he was doing this drooling thing. And all of a sudden he just sees his, do we have a decoy out?
Yeah, we had a decoy out.
That's what it was. So he sees this decoy and he starts doing all this behavior. And all of a sudden he looks over and he just kind of reaches his neck out and opens his mouth like he's going to grunt or something at the thing. And all of a sudden this stream of saliva comes shooting out about 4 feet. It was like, did you see that? So, those are the kinds of things that, we were doing. We're just gathering all this information, all this content, and we started to share it online because that started to become a platform. Mm-hmm. That's really the beginning of it all.
Interesting. Yeah. It's interesting. I look at it. I grew up as a kid watching hunting videos and watching Jackie Bushman and watching Rotary Monster Bucks and dreaming of being in the industry and watching these DVDs and the evolution of hunting television. and that being a dream of mine. And now so much of that content is online and digital. JJ, where did you, kind of learn, some of the things about video editing and how to deliver these things online and start to build this platform, the Deer Society?
Yeah, so from the video standpoint, we had a close friend, Kurt Rotter, we worked with back in the day. He's the one that produced all the VHS tapes for the goose calls, duck calls, turkey calls. He kind of took me under his wing and just showed me the basics for editing and framing and audio and things like that. And then when I got out of college, I took some courses on, just the illustrators and the Photoshops and the, that kind of transitions into learning Final Cut and all the different applications. And then, we bought our first camera, that Canon XH-A1, and just learning as you go is kind of how it all went. I watched a lot of videos growing up too, like you talked about, the Realtree Monster Bucks on Saturday, Sunday morning, wake up and, just look at all those ideas, see what's out there. What shows did I like? Obviously, the top shows out on the Sportsman channel, Outdoor channel. What did I like about those shows? What do I want to change? And then just kind of work it into different videos that I eventually produce. So,
yeah. And by the way, he did get on the Realtree Monster Buck, I believe, didn't you, with one of your hunts?
Yeah, in 2017, got on there. Yep, last year.
That's awesome. I'm jealous.
And that's the only, and I had my first and only autograph ever was a guy that saw the Realtree Monster Bucks DVD and wanted my autograph. So there you go.
Well, that'd be pretty cool. You have a little girl coming here soon. Congratulations.
Yeah. That's a couple months. So I'm going to get some work done before that happens.
Yeah, there you go. But you'll always be able to show her that Realtree Monster Bucks video and say, there you go, Daddy made it. That's awesome.
Yeah, by the way, I've never made the Realtree Monster Bucks, and Chris and I are back there holding the fort down while JJ's out hunting and filming.
I think the interesting thing too is you watch those shows growing up, and you see the Kansas hunts and the Iowa hunts and all these big bucks, and you think, how can I do that? How can I shoot these big bucks? And 15 years of hunting, I never shot anything big. And then you try to just figure it out by learning through other people, because a lot of times what you see on there is not really a do-it-yourself type hunt, some of those outfitted hunts or guided hunts. So I think through the Deer Society and through educating people, that's kind of why I took that outlet when we made videos. How can we do that? We learned from Rod White, Andy Orr, all these guys, and take that education part, try to transfer that into the videos and help people actually achieve that instead of just watching videos that are, big bucks walking in, shoot. You don't learn anything. So, obviously the dream is, to kill all these big bucks, but actually learning how to do it's a whole different ball game. And I think that's where Deer Society kind of comes into play too. So.
Yeah, and I want to add something to that, because that's really a part of developing the product. Is once we kind of did our thing and got it dialed in to where I thought it was right, then it was important for me to actually share what I learned with some of the best hunters I could find. So that's when we went out and we would seek out these people. JJ happened to see Rod White walking through the parking lot at a show one time. He says, "Hey, Dad, that's Rod White." And I go, "Well, who's Rod White?" He goes, "Well, he's an Olympic gold medalist." He goes, "He's one of the best deer hunters out there." I said, "Well, let's go say hi to him." And so that's how we met him. But I gave away calls to guys like Miles Keller, Rod White, Gabe Schaffner. We got Andy and Colton. And I could go on and on. I know I'm missing names here, but I just wanted honest feedback. And that's how you figure out if you got the right product or not. Every single one of these people that I mentioned shot a 200-inch deer after they got this product. Other than Miles never really kind of kicked in. But like Colton, he shot a 200-incher using our products. Rod shot a 200-incher. Gabe Schaffner, the very first guy that I started talking with, he shot his first 200-incher. And that man, he's passed away now, but that man he was old school, and he'd shot a lot of big deer. So that's a big part of the development is, making sure that your product's working at the highest possible level.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And there's definitely been a lot of validity through some of these great deer hunters. I mean, you mentioned a lot of them. Adam Hayes is another one.
Right.
One of the things that I believe you guys do very well through the Deer Society is providing proof that this stuff works. There's a lot of video out there on the networks and online that shows, hunters shooting big deer. But I think one of the things that you guys do very well is show it. No, there's no hidden secrets or things behind the scenes. I mean, it's real, true, and the products do really work. So I commend you on that. That's something that I enjoy watching your guys' videos. Chris, I want to touch on some of the operational things that happen behind the scenes. So you're kind of in charge of those things here at the office. Tell me about kind of your daily duties and what it takes to make all these things behind the scenes really happen.
Yeah, being in the industry, I know it's definitely a driving force for a lot of people that are very passionate about hunting and stuff like that. Everybody always kind of dreams or wants to be in the industry. And I think there's so much out there to be done in the industry that's not what you see on TV, not just a finished product, not just being out in the field hunting and on camera. So, my way into the industry, and it's kind of weird because doesn't feel like I'm like totally in the industry, but I pretty much am. I feel when I'm at the trade shows or we're doing things like this or we're out filming, but yeah, I mean, my daily job is kind of like any other person that works at a manufacturing company in any industry really is, I come in, I have employees I have to provide for, make sure they have, everything they need to complete their tasks and do their job for us. I have to coordinate production. I have to coordinate supplies coming in, inventory going out, and then you get to deal with a lot of retailers. I mean, do a lot with, mid chains, big chains. So then you're actually talking to higher up business people. So there's just a whole lot of different levels of things that go on. Working behind the scenes. And then you get random stuff, I have to coordinate trade shows, I'm working with Brian. He works with us, not you, Brian, but a different Brian. And he works with us and he does some help with JJ, and he does a lot of woodworking. So, I spend some time doing woodworking, building displays for shows, just building random things. We just built this new building here and we just moved in back in November and, helping build and stain trim and doors. So kind of a jack of all trades really behind the scenes, just making sure everything operates on every aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, it's interesting that you talk about the industry that way and mention that there's so many different avenues that you can take to get into the industry. I think it's such the hunting industry is so coveted, and everybody wants to be a part of that. But what really does that mean? Mike, are you part of the hunting industry? JJ, are you part of the hunting industry? I asked myself, well, it was always my dream to be in the hunting industry. And I asked myself today, am I in the industry? What does that mean? I think that's changed for me. I think there's a lot of great things, but I don't think it's all sunshine and roses either. JJ, what did you always want to be in the hunting industry? Do you see yourself as part of it?
I always wanted to hunt. I think that's what a lot of people think is being in the industry means you get to hunt and make a living, and that's what you do for your job. But that's pretty much 0.001% of people that are in the industry get that role. So like Chris said, there's just so many things you can do and maybe you're a sales rep, maybe you're head of production, maybe you're a photographer, a videographer. We got Adam standing behind the camera right now. He's in the industry and he's just pushing buttons back there. So there's a lot of things you can do in the industry, and not a lot of it's shooting deer and getting paid for that. So it's different. Yeah.
Absolutely. Mike, now that you kind of got these guys involved and work together, tell me about that. I mean, that's got to be something that you enjoy, getting to work so closely with your boys. And what do you think that future looks like, and how that's going to transition with the business?
Just that transition alone, of having my boys come into the business is, it's kind of crazy. And, I'm still going through it. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Where do I sit? Where do I stand? I think back about how I've done everything, to position it. And when you've done a little bit of everything and you've taught people how to support you and surrounded yourself with people that can support your vision, and you've kind of been the driving force behind that vision, it's a real interesting transition to just, bring other people in that now you want to kind of take over for you. And I'm kind of framing it like that because right now I'm in a position where JJ talked about it. It's not all hunting. 2 years ago, I did not get out in the stand one single day. That's how busy I was. That's what was happening with this business. It just goes in different levels. We talked about being in the basement. 7 years ago, we were working out of our basement, thinking we were going to lose our home. And now we've transitioned into our third move and built our own facility, and really only built half of that. We got, phase 2 is to build the other half. And to go through something like that it's just a crazy thing happening in my life, in our lives as a family. So now I'm trying to figure out how to not be that guy anymore, because I have two, I'm going to call them young men because they're younger than me, but they're grown adult men that are extremely capable. And both of them have outperformed anything I've ever done and achieved in my life. Chris, the guy's a combat Marine, served over in Iraq. I mean, there's stories there about things that happened. He was way better Marine than I ever was. I never did anything even close to that. Then you got JJ. He's been through college. He's shot more big deer in the last 4 years. He shot his target buck than I have almost in my whole life. And so when I say capable, I mean, I'm talking extremely capable. So as I kind of come down, getting into that, I'll be turning 60 here this summer. And I'm kind of coming down from that high of building this company and kind of almost trying to hand over the reins. That's exactly what's going on right now. Making that transition is very challenging. And I don't want to say very difficult because everybody is so capable. But the hard part is the transition. That's what's so challenging. Because when you're used to understanding and seeing big picture and people are working underneath you, you have to kind of hand over that and say, hey, you need to be the big picture guy now. You need to start inventing things. You need to start having these visions and these goals and figuring out how to achieve them and not worried about, I got to get 5 things edited. I got to get 100,000 deer calls made up in 90 days. How am I going to do that? I'm backward. Those are the things that those guys are dealing with now. And now I need to hand over even more. It's very interesting transition. And it wasn't very long ago. It was this summer when we all came out here to look at the building and it was framed out. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at this massive steel frame. To me, it was a big deal. And we had purchased this land and my boys are standing next to me and I'm looking, I'm going, what in the heck did we do? What did we do? Look what's going on. And then when the building was finished and we had to move in during peak season and I'm standing there and everybody's gone and it's just me and my wife and I'm looking around and I'm like, what did we do? Look at this facility. It's ours. We did it, And so I have this fulfillment, I'll be honest with you. And now I really want to transition and letting these guys, take this thing to a level that I wasn't able to take it to.
That's awesome. I look at it from the outside, whether it's hunting or it doesn't really matter what industry it is it's almost like the American dream. That may sound cliche, but that's really truly what the Deer Society has become, because you went from being in your basement, having nothing, almost losing your house, basement run business, to this now operation that so large and brings so much education and value to hunters. It's a pretty amazing story, and you can tell your passion about it and your passion about it continuing within the family. So I think that's pretty awesome. JJ, how do you see the business, changing? How do you see the videos changing? How do you see, what's your take?
Yeah. So, I mean, in this process of growing, we do have to bring in some help. So part of that transition's been obviously on the video side of things. You and Adam with Almond Eye Productions, stepping up the game there with our video production. And, we have some help with graphic design for the extinguisher, the black rack, things like that. We have teams that help out with web marketing, stuff like that. So just being in, it's hard for me too, because I'm kind of a control freak on certain issues, but when it comes to the production quality or, just video quality or graphics or whatnot, I like to control how things are, or at least see someone do something better than we can. And that's where we're working with you guys, working with other really high-end companies to bring us to that next level as well. So it's different.
Yeah. What do you think, looking at the industry, what do you think would be one piece of advice that you would give somebody that wanted to be in the industry? Maybe he's watching this podcast or, watching Mike Waddell on TV and that's what they want to do. Man, it could be in a lot of different fashions, but do you have any piece of advice on what you might say to them? Or
I think probably just find what your passion is and what your strength is and just go down that road. I'll just talk about my case. Whitetails was definitely my big passion. Not that I didn't love turkey hunting, goose hunting, duck hunting, that type of thing, but I really love the whitetail side of things. Just took that path, and then I was really creative with the graphics and the visuals, and really saw that big picture in that standpoint. And that's where I put all my effort on the illusion side of things, transition into the Deer Society side of things. And I think as long as that's your passion is, you're going to work harder doing that, whatever that task is, and you're just going to drive yourself into a good position if you work hard, put in the time, and just meet the right people, I guess.
Yeah, I think I couldn't agree more. I look at it, especially from the production standpoint, having Adam and I having our own production company, Almond Eye Productions, and there's so many content creators out there now, and everybody's looking to have a spot filming for somebody or just filming on their own and putting it on YouTube. And, what should they do differently and how can they be a part of something? It's interesting because we're actually looking to hire one or two new employees right now through Almond Eye. And one of the things that I'm looking for is not somebody that has watched hunting or has been molded by what they see, but instead somebody that has a passion, understands their style, and that's kind of their goal, is to just improve upon that. I would say a piece of advice would be don't just see something and try to copy that or fit in somewhere that you don't necessarily belong. Find your passion. Your passion was whitetails and the video and the marketing aspect of it. Find your passion, find your style, and make that the best way that it can, because you know what, you really, everybody has the opportunity, regardless of the industry, to change it, for the better, especially the hunting industry. It's always changing, and it's changing so quickly nowadays, that the old school stuff is old school. We're developing new things here within the Deer Society, and we got some great things coming this year in 2019. But develop your own passion, develop your own style, and I think that's really the best thing that you can do for yourself. Mike, do you have any words of wisdom on the industry, or if somebody was like you that had an idea and wanted to go for it, what would you tell them?
That's such a great question. It kind of boils down to that American dream and the American spirit and the entrepreneurial spirit. If you have that passion, like JJ said, that's definitely the first thing. You have to have the passion, okay? And if you create whether it's a product or an idea or whatever it is, you got to be taking risk. You know what I mean? In my case, I took that's what being an entrepreneur is. And every single successful business person, every single American dream you hear about, from Microsoft to anything, all started in their basement or their garage or their ideas. And it was a concept. They took massive risks. A lot of people did go bankrupt, and then they'd rebound from it because they were problem solvers. They were idea guys, and they were willing to take that risk, and they just went after it. And if you don't have that as a starting point, and if you don't have the tolerance for risk, and not everybody should be doing this, by the way. My wife could never do this. She does not like risk, okay? But that's nothing wrong with that. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't be able to do this either, because she supported financially during these transitions was something. When we're out there taking risk and we didn't have the revenues, she was there supporting it. So, but it's just not her thing, and it's not everybody's thing. You know, I'm trying to give advice, but really it's boils down to, don't make it about you. Make it about a passion, and be the best problem solver you can possibly be able and be tolerant of risk. And business is nothing more than not if you run into problems, but how do you get over that wall, that barrier? How do you cross that stream or river that you can't get across? It's all about problem solving, because every single day you will run in and encounter a problem. And Chris could really talk to that, you know, because that's what he's doing right now for this business. But you have to be able to do that, and you have to be able to expect it. It doesn't just happen. You have to make it happen.
Yeah, Chris, what are some of the difficulties that you deal with or have dealt with here recently? You know, I know that there was some things going on with Amazon and some counterfeit extinguishers that happened just not here too long ago.
Yeah, that's definitely one issue that came up, you know, and like I said, you never actually really know what the problem is going to be, because it could be anything. Like you said, just out of the blue, you know, we had counterfeit calls all of a sudden pop up on Amazon, you know, customers complaining, want to return calls, and they come in and, I mean, copied to a T. I mean, they took the card, they scanned it in a scanner, they scanned the front end of the DVD, they replicated the sticker. And I mean, just because me and my employees, I mean, every single actual extinguisher that comes through here, I mean, goes through our hands. All these calls are handmade and hand packaged, hand assembled and hand packaged. And, you know, there's subtleties and, like, you know, the hinge on the clam and random things like that, you know, point out to us, hey, this isn't even ours. I mean, so, and then, you know, maybe the next day the supplier's back ordered, and, you know, problems with a growing business. I mean, you know, calls and sales go up every year, so you plan for one thing and then it exceeds, you know, what you planned for, and you're scrambling last minute, and meanwhile it's the hunting season, and you're really in the back of your mind, shoot, I wish I was going to go out hunting this afternoon, but looks like I'm working all day today and for the next 3 days in a row, and it's October 31st, and darn it, I should be in the stand, but, you know, I'm fixing problems here at work, so.
Don't worry, JJ's out there for you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about some of the big things that the Deer Society has coming in 2019. And I think the first one, I was talking to JJ earlier, and he said that he was actually going to take that role for you so you could go out and sit in his stand this fall. JJ, what are some of the things that people can look forward to watching this spring and summer and even in the fall?
Yeah, well, first off, if they're just listening to this podcast, you can actually watch this podcast. So video podcast is one thing. We have a habitat series called the Whitetails from Scratch, where we're bringing a property that we actually just purchased this last year. It's the first time we ever purchased a property, S3. We're taking it through kind of the whole process of developing that land from start to finish, and hopefully the end result is 200-inch buck in 5 years, but we'll see. You can follow along with that one. Really high-end production that you guys did a phenomenal job on. We actually just released episode 1 with Andy Orr coming down a couple weeks ago, so you can watch that now on the Deer Society app or on YouTube. And what else do we got coming along? We have a bunch of hunt breakdowns from 2017 and 2018. 2017, I was not able to produce as much video as I would have liked. So we have a bunch of hunts that were in the can that we're now producing through Almondai and through you guys. Probably 20 or so hunts through that outlet. And if you're familiar with our hunt breakdowns, these ones would be pretty special. And if you're not, you can watch all of our hunt breakdowns on the app as well. What else do we got coming? We got some archery tips and tactics coming along with Rod White. He's an Olympic gold medalist we work with, so that'll be some phenomenal content. And what else do we have?
Basically, tons of new video content coming out, which is going to be pretty exciting. We've kicked off the Whitetails from Scratch series just this past week, and that's really cool because we're bringing all the viewers along basically for the ride. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. We're literally building this property from scratch, or I should say you guys are. We're kind of capturing it. But that's really cool because they'll be able to follow along throughout the whole year and live, and hopefully they can get lots of education there. We're going to be sharing lots of tips on what we're doing, that you guys can hopefully use in your bag of tricks this fall. So that's coming. We have some films that we're going to release this year. So some higher end cinematic films to kind of show off some of the cooler hunts that we do. So that being said, all of these different mini series, just highlighting different things, because that's what the Deer Society is about, right? It is bringing as much education to the hunter. We'll make you guys better hunters. In the first episode of Whitetails from Scratch, Andy Orr said it perfectly. He said, nobody wants to see me shoot big bucks. He said, I could shoot all the big bucks in the world. He said, but people want to shoot big bucks. And that's what the Deer Society is there for. We want to help you become a better hunter.
Yeah, you talk about that Deer Society. It's only 3 years old.
Yeah, 2015.
Yeah, 2015. We were just sitting in there having a meeting, doing our daily problem solving. And this weird idea popped into the head. And it's like, well, instead of just posting all this stuff on YouTube and everything, why don't we create this society, oh yeah, the Deer Society. And then when, the brains get going and this and that. And we started really thinking it out at a very high level. And you talked about the different videos and why JJ needed help. Look at all the videos that we've made since we started sharing information with people, even before it was considered Deer Society or at about the time we needed a platform. It's hundreds and hundreds of videos, from calling tips to rattling tips to hunt breakdowns to, just go on and on of the different things. And JJ edited every single one of them videos. And it got to a point where he just couldn't handle it no more. He got a whole year behind, like he said. And then out of the blue, these guys called us that used to do TV in the outdoor industry, and here you sit. Perfect timing, by the way.
Well, it's perfect timing. It's been awesome working with you guys so far, and we're really excited about the content that's coming out this year because it is a lot different than anything we've done before. I was a field producer, and Adam was producer and editor for 7 or 8 years before this year, and before we started Almondai Productions, our production company, and did a lot of cool things, went a lot of cool places. But the ability to work with you guys and really produce a real life, it's almost reality driven content. It's really cool, and it's really original, I guess.
Yeah, and the Deer Society is basically built on calling, rattling, scent control, with the phase systems, illusion products. Our big thing this year is just trying to get new outlets, new education, platforms out there, whether it's habitat, whether it's shooting. I think podcast is a huge one because you can go all different directions with it. Another thing we like to do is be different. So like this, if you're watching this podcast, obviously you can see this awesome studio setup that I'll give a shout out to Brian Clary. He built this whole studio setup, but the the thought behind like a TV behind us here. So if you're watching us on the video, we can do like hunt breakdowns. We can do some map flyovers on this TV and just kind of bring, kind of a secondary hunt breakdown to you guys too, and just be different, kind of expand our education platforms and just go a bunch of different directions. So that's kind of, I guess, be different. That's what we want to be.
Talk to me a little bit about the Illusion's newest line, Phase.
I think Mike can handle that one.
Well, I'll tell you what, phase is, like JJ said, everything's always been about, calling and different things like that. And because there's unlimited ways to communicate and have conversations, just like us, as humans, it's the same thing with deer. So, we'll continue to do that. And we're going to continue to learn more. We're going to continue to share more. But the reason we were able to get up close and personal to deer is because they didn't know we were there. Okay? We were creating the illusion, if you will. That's my plug. But scent control is everything. And, most deer hunters understand how important that is. We've all, and it will always continue to happen, that you'll make a mistake with your scent control. A deer will get downwind, and all of a sudden, whew, you see that reaction, and boom, they're gone. You're like, oh, no. So we knew how important that was. So that was the next thing. It's taken years to design this conceptual product, which is completely different than anything out there right now. Okay? Our technology and the way we're approaching scent control is completely different than it's ever been done before. What I mean by that is we are targeting the human element. Okay? A deer's nose and their smelling is so advanced, and it's so much more advanced than ours. They break down specific odor, specific smells. So if you think that you're going to go and just eliminate all odor when you go out into your environment, that's literally impossible. So what turns that deer inside out? He wasn't turned inside out when he walked by that guy's shed or the farm tractor or whatever. There's sensors out there all over that are foreign, okay? But as soon as he got downwind of that human, turned him inside out. They understand that human odor molecule, and they understand it as extreme danger. So that's what we went after. And the technology behind this phase, what it does is it actually encapsulates all the different types of molecules that we emit as a human. And we can get into a lot more detail on that and you'll see that in our upcoming content. But basically what we're doing is we're surrounding those Malodor style molecules, and we're encapsulating with a technology so that when it goes into the nose and the olfactory tries to identify it, it can't identify it. It doesn't know it exists. It doesn't know it's there. Okay? So if you remove that human element, and if you follow that system, it's a system that you have to do in order to get, encapsulate almost as many, if not all of those molecules as possible, then you're going to be a lot more effective in the field. And the deer, we got deer literally, the stories will blow your mind. The very first guy that ever bought this product was waiting at the door for me. He's a gentleman that I knew, and I told him, hey, I've been working on this, blah, blah, blah. Scent fanatic. He's waiting at the door at 3:30. I said, I'll have some bottled up by 3:30. Come in. He buys like 3 systems because him and his buddy are, they're into it. He's got his own washer and stuff down in the basement. His wife can't use it. His own closets, all that kind of stuff. Anyway, he gets a hold of this stuff. He's going to test it out. I'm like, well, this would be a good testament. Calls me up that week and says, oh, Mike, he says, I think there's something to this. Well, I knew there was something to it because I'd already done the testing, right? And he goes, me and my boy were going out to our stand, and we're getting ready to cross the field, and there's a doe and a fawn out there, so we got locked down on the edge of the field. They fed their way up to within 15 yards of us, directly downwind. We were on the ground. They had no idea we were there. They fed out. We ended up getting to our stand. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool testament, on the ground, 15 yards downwind.
Absolutely.
So later that week, the next week I think it was, he calls me again. He goes, Mike, you're just not even going to believe it. And I go, what? He goes, I was after this deer. It says it was my target deer, but he never did show up. But a really nice buck showed up the other night. And he says, and I shot him. It wasn't sure how good the hit was, so I waited till it got dark. I get down from my stand. I start tracking the blood. He says, I go down in this ravine, and something just came over me. And I looked up on the skyline, was this big buck that he'd been chasing. He's like, what the heck? And so the deer's looking down at him, so he shuts his little flashlight off. He said the deer circled down the ravine like a big smart deer would, starts walking up the deer trail right at him, downwind now. He said that thing got within 15 yards of him, standing toe to toe. He freaked out. He had to knock an arrow in the bow, wondering what in the world's going on. And then the deer kind of looked him over and like, nah, not nothing. And it just kind of wandered back up on the ridge and walked up. Stayed downwind of him, though, because he knew he was there. And then he got confused. He says, well, maybe that's the deer I shot, and he lost a lot of blood, and he's confused, and, something's wrong. So he started trailing it. And, anyway, it ended up, not being the deer. But when I heard that, it was just like, you got to be kidding me. Nobody would ever believe that. That's 2 incidents of, doing really good body odor control care with this system where he had deer downwind directly and he's on the ground at 15 yards. Now, that's phase. I mean, that's just what the phase concept is about. I can't, there's so much more to talk about it, but there's another incident that happened later that season. And that, I think, is a story that JJ might want to tell.
Well, I want to hit on one other thing first. So the phase system, you talked about how it permanently entraps odor molecules, but we work on the bacterial odor, and then the skin cells is the thing that you forgot too. So like we moisturize the skin so the dander's not floating around, and that's something that most other companies don't really focus on, and that's something that we really have seen has worked really well for us. So I didn't believe in the technology right away. We've been testing it for probably 5 years or so. And you kept going out there, I swear these deer were downwind, Jay. These deer were downwind to me. And I thought, no, that's just the thermals are rising, and there's no way the deer are downwind.
By the way, you did that with the deer call too, but we got stories about that some other time.
It takes a while for me to believe in something, I guess, but years of testing this stuff alongside, other products. And then finally 2016 came when we started having really good results, put the phase system to the full test. And that's when, if anyone's seen the hunt, you can go watch the Curly hunt where I shot a 182-inch Minnesota buck directly downwind from the ground late season. So, yeah, I'm a believer. And then I shot my buck the next year. I rattled him in and shot him in downwind at 20 yards too. So a couple years in a row, and it's working pretty well.
Well, I can tell you, I was to the location where you shot Curly, and I've seen the video, and I stood where you stood and stood where the deer stood, and that deer had every advantage over you that he could, especially the wind, and it was blowing right at him. You can see it on the video, and I mean, cliche or not, the proof was in the pudding there. That was unbelievable. I tried phase for the first time this past fall, and one instance that really stands out to me was actually my wife and a good friend of mine and almost like a second dad to me, Tom Inderbill, once told me, he said, when you're going out hunting, just because the wind's good for you doesn't mean it's good for the deer. And I thought about that a lot and tried to beat the wind several times, even though I shouldn't, and tried to beat the wind and could never do it. Never had a lot of success doing it. There was a situation this fall where I had a pretty much a bad wind, and all these deer were coming from the same spot. I knew where they were coming from, and had a pretty good buck coming in there. And my wife had never shot a buck with her bow, and we had a newborn baby last year as well. So she was busy taking care of him, but wanted to get out and hunt one day. So having that bad wind was a tough situation. I said, well, what a perfect day for her to go out and sit, because I didn't want to go sit there with a bad wind. No, but so she went out and sat, and I dropped her off, and the wind was blowing right at where these deer were coming from. And, right before dark, I put my son Barrett in the truck, and we went out there to get her, and she came out and figured that she was going to tell me some horror story. And she said, Brian, I saw 17 deer walk by me. I said, 17 deer? Really? I said, well, they had to come up that trail, right? She said, yeah. I said, which way was the wind blowing? She said, well, it was blowing right down that way. Well, I had made my wife, before she went to the stand, go through this phase system. And at that point, I was a believer because I understood what those deer were doing. I knew the exact direction of the wind. And for her to see those 17 deer amazed me. So like these guys said, like you guys said, it is a system. And one of the cool things that we're doing this year is coming out with a series, which you can also find on YouTube and the app, a scent control system series. So we'll kind of walk you through the things that we do, hopefully the things that you can do. And I promise you, I think you will see results because this stuff works.
Yeah, and it's important to, follow all the steps. That's why we need a long, video catalog of all these tips and tactics of scent control, because, you could take product X, whatever that product is, and use it on, as a detergent and say, well, this product didn't work. Well, that's maybe because you didn't shower before you wash your clothes or something. So you got to, you use the products on all the steps. We're going to show basically break down each system step by step. And that's really how the success comes together. Is when you use the whole system, not just a part of the face system. So
Yeah, there's a lot more aspects to scent control. And we're only focused on the human body odor right now. But scent control can be a whole lot of things. And I didn't bring it up. JJ was right. And Chris actually could attest to this probably better than everybody as far as the dander part and how dander can affect the hunts. Because he has allergies. If he gets in a room with a cat or a horse, I mean, it's brutal and it's immediate. So maybe there's some things that you can tell us about the dander piece and what you've noticed as far as if you hunt stands more often than not, or.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed it, how well it worked. Pretty much the first year we started implementing it, like I said, I don't get out as often as my brother gets to get out. JJ's always, he gets his videos caught up during the summer, and then I'm busy, swamped when the season's good. So I try to plan everything so I can take my 1-2 weeks. Like I always try to take that last week of October, that last weekend, first week in November. Every single year is kind of, that's just my weekend. I try to guarantee I'm going to get out in the stand. And, before we just bought this new property, I mean, I only had one place to hunt, and it's about a 40-acre hayfield, and there's about one fence line with trees on it that I can hunt, and then the other tree line butts up to the neighbors' blinds and stands. So I always hunt, usually the oak ridge on the opposite side of them. But so I'm, even though I'm hunting about 3 or 4 stands on this one ridge, they're all pretty much along the same deer trail and the same ridge line. So, I mean, I was, it was my first year kind of self-filming because JJ was busy over in Wisconsin. And, I mean, every day lugging a pack in and out, going to the same stands over and over again. And that whole week, besides one morning when I was climbing in, and as I was climbing up the stand, I got busted moving up in the stand by a doe across the street on a different ridge. I didn't get winded once. So, I mean, that's a pretty good testament hunting pretty much the same area day in, day out for a whole week straight and not getting busted once, just from my scent.
Yeah, and to that point, the fact that you were seeing deer every day, and this is what stuck in my head, if you're leaving dander, and it's microscopic, you don't even see it. Like I said, he walks into a room, boom, allergies. If you have allergies, you know what we're talking about. You're leaving those human skin cells in and to your scent. Now, especially if you're using products that make your skin dry and itchy and flaky, which is a very high percentage of them. So you're leaving that dander in and out. You don't realize it, but you are. And so if you hunt a stand for 2-3 days in a row, you burn that stand out. Well, everybody kind of has experienced that. Well, that's what we're talking about. That's what we're targeting. We're targeting that dander. So now those physical things that a deer can identify of the human body, you're not leaving that anymore. And then you're not itchy in your skin. So, it actually heals your skin. The active ingredient is used in healing skin as well. But that's a big deal, especially if you're in a situation like Chris described, where you have limited places where you can hunt. You may only have 1 or 2 or 3 stands. You're hitting it hard those 2 weeks. You're going to burn them stands out. But he didn't, so there you go. There's another testament.
Yeah. And it is salon grade and it's such a high quality product. I mean, once the season kicks in, even if I know I'm not going to be going out for like 3 weeks, just cause I know I'm that busy at work, I'm just like, once season starts, I'm using phase every single day because I can. I'm not going to dry out my skin like all the other stuff in the past has, You get the cracked knuckles after a few weeks of going out and you're in the dry, cold air. So, I mean, it's something you can use daily and not even notice a difference from the salon grade products you're buying at, your convenience store.
Yeah, I want to, before we wrap up here, kind of circle back and ask, how does somebody, with all the different avenues the Deer Society has, one of the cool things that you guys do is the viewer submissions, kind of putting those hunts together. How does somebody become a part of the Deer Society?
Well, yeah, if somebody's out there filming right now and they capture something cool on video, feel free to send it in. We would love to possibly produce it if it makes sense. Working with Brian Clary, one that built the wall here behind us. He does a lot of the viewer submission type videos for us right now. It just depends. There's just such a wide variety of things that people are doing, from, self-filming. Maybe they're just using a Tacticam. Maybe they can get involved with the Whitetail Championship or something like that too. So just kind of a wide variety of things. And, just send us a message, send us an email, Facebook message, Instagram message, whatever it may be, and we can kind of direct you to where they can be involved at some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big part of it. And the way I see it is everybody really is part of the Deer Society. The Deer Society isn't you, Mike. It's not you, JJ. It's not you, Chris. The Deer Society is a group of people. It's a group of hunters that all have the same passion, right? And we're all doing it because we love to do it. That's really what it's all about. And that's what the Deer Society is about. So we want to, these guys, we all want to hear from you. We want to hear your feedback with these different things. We want to see your experiences, and we want to share as much as we can too, to help you and bring you not only entertainment, but education. So I think that's kind of a good way to end here. Go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, and as we release more videos like the Whitetails from Scratch and these podcasts, just feel free to comment right below so we can see what you're thinking. Then we can tailor these videos more towards their interests and things like that too. So comment right below the video and send messages. So. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure to interact with us on Facebook and Instagram at the Deer Society. And if you are watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, and definitely go out and download the Deer Society app, because that's going to be where all of our new content is hosted. So that's going to be a great tool, not only to see some of the cool videos that we're doing, but to get education on the scent control series and calling tips and different things that you can use to hopefully, again, put the odds in your favor this fall. For next episode and future podcasts, we're going to be doing a question and answer segment. So make sure to go on below this video or send us a message on Facebook and Instagram. We want to hear some of your questions and then answer them with the guys we have on the podcast that week. So drop us a message on Facebook or Instagram, or comment on the video below. Well, thanks, guys. Make sure, for you guys listening, make sure to go download the app, Deer Society app.
It's free.
Free, absolutely. There's lots of great content on there. Also, subscribe on YouTube. Look for all the new stuff that we have coming out here in 2019. Like we said, just released the Whitetails from Scratch episode. So check that out. Exciting stuff coming in 2 weeks. We have Andy Orr that's going to be on the podcast. So he's full of great information and things you can start doing now to improve your chances this fall. So make sure you check back 2 weeks, new podcast with Andy Orr. And thanks for listening.